After my boyfriend sent me to the heir to the Vance fortune, he regretted it profoundly. My boyfriend wanted to cure his idealized first love / the woman he put on a pedestal, so he asked me to spend a night with the heir to the Vance fortune, Robert Vance. If I went, Robert Vance would not only give him $300,000 cash but also arrange a job with an annual salary of $1 million. But everyone in the East Coast elite / powerful social circle knew that Robert Vance had special habits and liked to torment women most. Women who fell into his hands would, in minor cases, suffer severe bleeding and lose their fertility, and in severe cases, turn into walking dead with mental illness. Unlike in my previous life, I didn't sternly refuse my boyfriend David. I nodded obediently and agreed, okay, I'll go. In my previous life, I told David that I couldn't sell myself to save another woman. Moreover, Isabella was left penniless after the divorce because she cheated on her husband and contracted a serious illness, later revealed as AIDS, so it was her own fault for not having money for treatment. Isabella couldn't bear to have her true face exposed by me and jumped into the river out of shame. As a result, David went crazy and even found a group of AIDS patients to violate me, recording a video to ruin my reputation completely. Sarah, it's all your fault, you vicious woman. You ruined my future and slandered Isabella, causing her death. You like spreading rumors, don't you? Then experience it yourself. Your current fate is what you deserve. Before I died, covered in sores, David was still cursing me with a face full of resentment. I didn't want to repeat the tragic mistakes of my previous life, so this time, I decided to fulfill David's wish and complete the good deed for him and Isabella. David probably didn't expect me to readily agree to such an outrageous request. His expression was slightly startled for a moment, then he immediately made empty promises. When I get rich, I'll let you live a good life with money too. Isabella, standing beside him, also seemed very surprised, but she cautiously instructed me, Sarah, you must seize this opportunity, don't mess it up. No matter what tricks Robert plays, you have to cooperate obediently. It's just one night, endure it and it will be over. Watching them righteously ask me to sell myself for their gain, I felt nothing but disgust. Could something like that even be endured? It was like this in the previous life. Ever since Isabella was swept out by her ex-husband and found David, his whole soul had been captivated. When he learned that Isabella was left penniless after the divorce and couldn't even afford food, David immediately handed over his salary card. Isabella said she had a serious illness, and David's heart ached, crying straight away. He pounded his chest and said he would pay any price to cure her. At first, I was angry and told David to choose between me and Isabella, or we would break up. David hadn't even said anything when Isabella started weeping, saying it was all her fault, asking me not to be angry, and that she would just quietly wait to die alone. David immediately panicked and hit me for the first time. He grabbed my hair viciously and banged my head against the wall, beating me until I coughed up blood nonstop. He called me a petty and wicked woman with no sympathy. What was the difference between breaking up now and kicking someone while they're down? If I dared to mention breaking up again, he would beat me to death. Afterward, I was hospitalized for a full week before I could get out of bed. I was afraid. Even when David brought Isabella home, I didn't dare to say anything more. If it weren't for Isabella going so far as to suggest I go with Robert Vance to gain benefits, crossing my bottom line, I really wouldn't have dared to reveal the truth about her being left penniless after the divorce and contracting the illness. So, Eve. And though I was mentally prepared, I still asked David a question with some reluctance. I asked, you must have heard about Robert Vance's habits. What if he abuses me and I'm ruined, or even lose my fertility? When David and I first started dating, he swore to the heavens that he would be good to me forever. If any other man even looked at me, he would get jealous easily and argue with them. Even if I had a normal social engagement with a man, if he saw it, he would act like a child, throwing himself into my arms and crying, asking if I had fallen for that wild man. I once found his excessive jealousy quite troublesome. Therefore, deep down, I couldn't accept that David, for Isabella's sake, would actively send me to another man for benefits. Hearing my question, David indeed frowned tightly, but quickly, he waved his hand and said, "That's just rumors, it's definitely not that exaggerated." Isabella followed suit, saying earnestly, "Sarah, don't worry. If something happens to you and you can't have children, I can help you give birth after I recover. I don't care about formal status. The child can call you mom then. Ha! I couldn't understand how she had the nerve to say such outrageous, manipulative words. However, these words deeply moved David. He praised Isabella, calling her great, then his face darkened, and he turned to me, saying sharply, "Sarah, when can you be sensible and considerate like Isabella?" I felt nauseated with heartbreak. After a moment of hesitation, biting my lip, I asked them a question they had never considered. What if Robert Vance goes back on his word afterward and doesn't fulfill his promises to you? David waved his hand. Impossible. Robert already agreed with me. As long as you can spend the night with him, he'll transfer the money and arrange the job the next day. He's the heir to the Vance fortune / son of the powerful Vance family. He wouldn't break his word on such a small matter. Isabella also smiled and comfort. Rude me, Sarah, you're worrying too much. Robert never treats the women who stay with him badly. You can put your heart at ease. I stared at Isabella and asked, "How do you know?" Isabella paused for a moment before replying, "I'm really not lying to you. Not every woman has the good fortune to be noticed by Robert. This matter is actually your luck." All right, stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and get ready. The time we agreed with Robert is almost here. We can't be late. When I wanted to say more, David interrupted me impatiently. I immediately swallowed all my words and nodded. Okay, I'll listen to you. However, they probably never dreamed that their dirty plan was doomed to fail. Arriving at the agreed location, Robert Vance was already waiting. Robert Vance's notorious reputation as a pervert was known to everyone in the East Coast elite / powerful social circle, but he didn't look like a repulsive, greasy man. On the contrary, his hair was neatly combed, and he wore gold-rimmed glasses. Even with a deep scar on his face, he still gave off a gentle and refined feeling. But thinking about Robert Vance's terrifying methods of tormenting women, I couldn't help but tremble. "Sorry for keeping you waiting, Robert." Seeing Robert Vance, David greeted him with an awkward smile. Robert Vance waved a hand, glanced at me, and got straight to the point. "I don't like beating around the bush. Did you tell Sarah my intentions?" David quickly nodded. "Yes, I told her everything." Robert Vance grunted and immediately shifted his gaze to me. "So, Sarah, what do you say?" "Don't worry, I never force anyone." I really wanted to say I wasn't willing, but David's glare felt like knives. Seeing his threatening look, my body trembled. Forcing myself to calm down, I nodded to Robert Vance and said, "I am willing." Robert Vance smiled with satisfaction and then gave David a thumbs up. "David, you really have talent. You managed to train a proud girl like Sarah to be as obedient as a dog." My dignity shattered instantly. Even outsiders knew that I used to never bow down to anyone and never accepted any implicit rules. But now, I was like David's trained dog, not only selling myself but also enduring public humiliation. However, David didn't feel ashamed. Instead, he compliantly praised Robert Vance with some pride. "You flatter me, Robert. Even if I didn't train her, with your charm, Sarah would be willing to accompany you." "Exactly. For someone like you, Robert, any woman who gets a chance to be with you is truly blessed." Robert Vance didn't even look at Isabella. He looked at David with some amusement and said, "You probably heard about some of my little habits, but I also have a principle that I need to tell you." David and Isabella were startled, asking with puzzled looks, "What principle?" Robert Vance's gaze fell on me, and he showed a meaningful smile. "Although I'm not a germaphobe, I never touch women who are already taken. And once a woman is mine, no one else is allowed to touch her." David froze on the spot, then his expression became conflicted. I could see that David's conflict wasn't because he was reluctant to let me go, but because he was worried I wouldn't get him what he wanted. As expected, David immediately gave a dry laugh and said, "Robert, I understand what you mean. It's about the things you promised me." Robert Vance's face darkened. "What, are you doubting that I'm a person who goes back on their word? If she doesn't meet my principle, then forget about it." David hurriedly explained, "Robert, I didn't mean that. Actually, Sarah and I broke up a long time ago. She's single now, definitely not taken. I'm with Isabella now, and I certainly won't have any entanglement with her anymore. Saying this, he put his arm around Isabella next to him to prove it to Robert Vance. Isabella also reacted and cheerfully cooperated, saying, "Oh, Robert, you can go ahead and have fun, Sarah will be yours from now on." With David and Isabella's assurance, Robert Vance then looked at me playfully. "Sarah, what about you? You have to be willing to accompany me. I never force anyone." In my previous life, when David deliberately threw me to that group of AIDS patients to be tortured, I had already completely given up hope. So I nodded calmly, "I am willing." Robert Vance clapped his hands with a smile. "Very good. In that case, come with me. I hope we can have a wonderful night." Saying that, he took my hand. I trembled all over and silently followed behind Robert Vance. Watching me being taken away by another man, David not only showed no sign of jealousy but instead waved goodbye with a cheerful expression. "Robert, hope you have a good time." At this moment, my heart completely froze, and I no longer held any illusions about David. I didn't look back and followed Robert Vance all the way to his mansion/estate. His room was filled with whips, shackles, and other tools that would make any woman tremble with fear at first sight. However, I didn't feel the slightest fear. Without waiting for Robert Vance's instructions, I spoke first. "I'll go wash up first. Please be patient for a moment, Robert." Robert Vance suddenly withdrew the playful smile from his face, his eyes turning instantly cold and terrifying. The whole night, Robert Vance didn't let me close my eyes. It wasn't until dawn that Robert Vance said, visibly displeased, "Sarah, you are truly disappointing. Things have come to this point, and you still want to go back to that dog man? You're beyond saving. Get out!" His command to get out felt like a huge relief. The indignity of the entire night without any dignity was finally over. Yes, I still had to go back to David. Under Robert Vance's angry and puzzled gaze, I fled the room as if escaping, rushing back to the place I once considered home. But just as I reached the door, I heard the lewd sounds of David and Isabella. "Isabella, I finally truly have you." They seemed to have been together all night as well. David's voice was tired yet affectionate. Isabella responded with a sob, "David, I've given you the rest of my life. You can't let me down." David hugged Isabella tightly to his chest with heartache. "Don't worry, Isabella. Once I get the money, I'll get you treated. When you're better, we'll get married." Isabella said with some worry, "What about Sarah?" David said seriously, "Don't mention her. She was always just a substitute for you." Hearing their words, I wasn't surprised, only disgusted. I directly opened the door and started packing my things. "Sarah, why are you back so early?" Hearing the noise, David came out of the bedroom. Seeing me, he demanded sharply. I glanced at him. Everything that needed to be done is done. "Of course, I'm coming home." David's eyes immediately lit up, and he quickly asked, "How was it? Was Robert happy? Did he give you the money?" I said, "You'll have to ask Robert Vance. You talked to him about the money, didn't you? Why would he give the money to me?" At this moment, Isabella, wearing David's shirt, also came out of the bedroom and said somewhat urgently, "David, quickly call Robert and ask." David finally reacted and quickly pulled out his phone to call Robert Vance. However, after the call connected and they talked for just a few sentences, David's face quickly turned grim. Slap! After hanging up the phone, David rushed directly to me and slapped me hard across the face. "Sarah, you bitch, what did you do?" His eyes were red with rage, and he almost roared at me. I covered my burning cheek and asked, "What's wrong?" David said furiously, "You have the nerve to come back. Just now Robert said on the phone that I shouldn't even think about the money and the job. It must be you, you worthless slut, who didn't satisfy Robert." I bit my lip and said, "But I did everything I was supposed to do. It's not my fault if Robert Van C.E. went back on his word. In my opinion, she deliberately sabotaged things. She must have said bad things about you to Robert, otherwise, Robert wouldn't have gone back on his word." Isabella also looked unpleasant at this point, glaring at me resentfully and snorting. Hearing this, David's face turned even darker, looking like he wanted to eat me alive. "Sarah, is what Isabella said true? You deliberately messed up my chance, didn't you? Seeing David's furious appearance at this moment, I felt terrified. In my previous life, when Isabella died, he looked just like this, horrifying. At that time, he locked me in the room with a dog chain, found a group of AIDS patients from somewhere, and watched me being ravaged with a cruel grin, ignoring my desperate pleas. So I quickly said, I did my best to satisfy Robert Vance. I really didn't sabotage anything, and I wouldn't dare. David probably felt confident that I wouldn't pull any stunts behind his back. He snorted coldly and said resentfully, Sarah, you are such a useless waste. You can't even handle such a small thing. I really can't rely on you at all. Isabella also said with dissatisfaction, honestly, such a good opportunity was given to you and you couldn't handle it, such a waste. Do you know how much you made David lose? You have to compensate him. Their words only struck me as ironic. I caused David a loss? And they want me to compensate him. What kind of shameless logic is this? But David believed Isabella's words and glared at me with a furious look. Isabella is right, you must compensate me for my losses. I endured the grievance and asked, how do you want me to compensate you? David pondered for a moment and said seriously, given our past relationship, I won't make it too hard for you. Just compensate me $3 million. I trembled all over. $3 million? He had the nerve to demand it. Ever since he gave his salary card to Isabella, he had been spending my money. However, And so, Isabella still pouted with dissatisfaction. With David's ability, if he had a good platform, forget $1 million a year, even $10 million wouldn't be a problem. Now it's all ruined by you, and you're also delaying my treatment. Asking for only $3 million is too cheap. I opened my mouth, unable to argue with their bizarre logic. Despite my immense reluctance, I bit my lip and said, okay, I'll compensate you. Seeing me agree to compensate, David's expression softened slightly, but he still snorted with great dissatisfaction, blame yourself for being useless, and for delaying my future. And Isabella showed a playful smile, adding, an empty promise is no good, you have to write an IOU, otherwise what if you go back on your word? I resigned myself. Now I just wanted to get rid of this despicable couple. Even though I was unwilling, I still wrote them an IOU for $3 million. Good, you know what's good for you. Getting the IOU, David and Isabella smiled with satisfaction. I thought, finally, I could completely get rid of this despicable couple. Who knew that the next moment, David's lips curved into a smile that sent shivers down my spine. Okay, now you can come with me to find Robert and get the money. I was startled for a moment and asked with some confusion, go find Robert Vance for money? How? David and Isabella exchanged glances and waved their hands at me impatiently. Don't worry about that, you'll know when we get there. Saying that, they both got dressed and tidied up, then took me to Robert Vance's residence. They brought the banner they had prepared beforehand and a loudspeaker. The banner read, heir to the Vance fortune Robert Vance, abuser of women/oppressor. The loudspeaker shouted, heir to the Vance fortune Robert Vance got my girlfriend pregnant and is trying to abandon her. Clearly, they had already prepared for Robert Vance going back on his word. I had no idea David could be so shameless. Whether he would achieve his goal, I didn't know, but I knew that next, I was probably going to be ruined and socially annihilated again. The sound of the loudspeaker quickly attracted a crowd to gather. Seeing the crowd grow, David's lips immediately curved into a subtle sinister smile. Then he pushed me in front of everyone and cried out, heir to the Vance fortune Robert Vance got my girlfriend pregnant and is trying to abandon her and wants me to raise their child. Everyone, judge this. Tell me, isn't this bullying an honest person? As soon as he said this, the onlookers immediately started discussing Robert Vance? That pervert heir? TSK. Sigh, not many rich people are good. Some were indignant and cursed Robert Vance, but more people looked at me. Actually, the biggest problem is this woman. She looks pure on the outside, but deep down she's just a cheap slut. Yeah, she throws herself at rich people. Pfft, pure slut. I heard that Robert loves to torment women. She goes crawling to him anyway, she's just asking for it. Women like this deserve to be played to death. Listening to the crowd's insults and curses towards me, I instantly understood David's intention. He was definitely doing this on purpose. He wanted to ruin my reputation completely. Among the onlookers, some even started a live stream/went live, broadcasting everything that was said and done to me. The comments about me online were even more unbearable. "Sarah, this is what you get for not handling things properly." However, seeing all this, David showed no sign of softness. Instead, he whispered in my ear, "Now you're famous. Although many people are cursing you, don't worry, there will definitely be many people interested in you. Then you can sell yourself at a clear price, and you'll be able to earn $3 million in no time." I asked David with red eyes, "Why are you being so cruel to me? Do you have to force me to die?" David snorted and said, "You deserve it. I Clea. RLY told you that you must satisfy Robert, but you still mess things up, delaying Isabella's treatment. I definitely won't let you off easy." Isabella also lowered her voice and said, "Sarah, don't blame David for doing this. Actually, we're not doing this to target you, but to make Robert fulfill his promise." I chuckled coldly. "Do you think that using such a despicable and shameless method will make Robert Vance give you money?" David said indifferently, "Who knows without trying? Anyway, if you don't fulfill your promise, this isn't over." Saying that, he squeezed out a few tears and cried to the onlookers. In David's words, I became a despicable woman who was having an affair with Robert Vance behind his back. He even took out the IOU I had written and showed it to the crowd, saying I owed him money. The crowd became even more indignant. This woman is truly vicious. She's scamming money from an honest person while messing around with a rich guy. Why doesn't she just die? Sigh, morals are declining. Wicked woman, pay back the money. Some people couldn't stand it anymore and started throwing rotten food/throwing garbage at me. "Everyone, shut up." Seeing me being accused and insulted by almost everyone, Robert Vance suddenly shouted loudly, "Look at this before you judge. You're being led on without knowing the full situation." Saying this, he took out a hospital report/medical report. When the crowd saw the contents of the report, they all fell silent. "AIDS? Positive." Seeing the content on the report, the onlookers were stunned, standing frozen on the spot. "Whose test result is this?" However, when they saw the name on the report, they immediately asked out of curiosity. Robert Vance smiled faintly and then shifted his gaze to Isabella. "Let me tell everyone a story." Isabella finally realized something at this point. Her face turned pale, and she pulled David's arm in a panic. "David, let's go." However, David, who didn't kn. What illness Isabella actually had, confidently comforted her. "Isabella, it's okay. Whatever tricks they play, it doesn't matter. Today, I must get the money to cure you." Isabella panicked and said anxiously, "Treatment isn't urgent. I feel a bit unwell, let's hurry and go." But Robert Vance directly blocked her. "It's too late to run now." Following that, Robert Vance revealed the true relationship between me, David, and Isabella. "No way, Robert, are you saying that David sent his current girlfriend to you for money to treat his ex-girlfriend Isabella? And the crucial thing is that David didn't know his ex-girlfriend had AIDS? That can't be true. How could a normal person do something so outrageous?" Upon hearing this, everyone was shocked beyond belief. "Robert, stop slandering people. Isabella can't have such a dirty disease." However, hearing the crowd's discussion, David immediately panicked and said loudly with a grim face. Robert Vance glanced at him and then threw the hospital report/medical report to David. "See for yourself." David took the report and looked, his face instantly turning incredibly grim. "Impossible. Isabella would never get such a dirty disease." "Don't think I don't know. With your power, Robert, forging a report is easy." However, even after seeing the report with his own eyes, David still didn't believe it. Robert Vance cursed him, calling him an idiot, and sneered, "Who do you think you are? Worthy of me forging a report for you? Why would I do something like that for a petty lowlife like you?" David fell silent. His eyes were filled with complex conflict for a while before he reluctantly looked at Isabella. "Isabella, tell me, you don't have that kind of disease. Isabella trembled all over, then straightened up and said pitifully, I don't have that kind of disease. It must be Sarah and Robert working together to slander me. Seeing her being stubborn, I chuckled coldly and didn't bother saying more. He couldn't hide something like this for long anyway. Ignoring David and Isabella, I walked directly to Robert Vance. I was wrong, I was truly wrong. Everything you said came true. Robert Vance's eyes immediately softened, and he looked at me with immense tenderness in his voice. Let's not talk about these things between us. It's not too late to turn back now. What do you plan to do next? I turned and glanced at David, saying with relief, cut off all ties with him completely, no more entanglement. What's going on? Whether it was the onlookers or David and Isabella, everyone was stunned hearing Robert Vance and me talking like old friends. What's going on with Robert and Sarah? They don't seem to have that kind of relationship at all. The crowd was confused and curious. You two already knew each other? David also noticed and questioned me immediately. I didn't want to answer, but Robert Vance pulled me behind him and said, of course. Sarah is the woman I've loved since we were kids. Unfortunately, I was busy handling family estate, Carter family estate, affairs and never found a chance to confess. I didn't expect a shameless, hypocritical person like you to take advantage. I told her a long time ago that a guy like you was completely unreliable, but back then, she even stopped being friends with me to defend you. But how did you treat Sarah? Hearing Robert Vance confessing his feelings for me while scolding David, my heart felt complex. Back then, I blindly believed David's false affection, thinking it was love, until Isabella appeared, and I realized I had jumped into a pit of fire. But never mind. Having been reborn, I was awake now. I didn't want to have any more entanglement with David. His fate was sealed anyway. Sighing lightly, I said softly to Robert Vance, let's not waste words on him. Take me home. Robert Vance hummed, it's been so many years, you really should come home. Your dad and mom missed you terribly and cried a lot. As soon as he finished speaking, he led me through the crowd, slowly disappearing from everyone's sight. Dad, Mom. Returning to the family estate, Carter family estate, I had been away from for so long, I knelt directly in front of my parents. Dad and Mom both looked heartbroken. They seemed afraid I would have bad memories and didn't ask about me and David. Mom said with a cheerful smile, it's good to have you home. But don't ever run away without a word again. Dad wasn't as strict as when I was little. He said softly, your mom and I are old now. Try to help with the family estate, Carter family estate, affairs as much as you can. I could see that Dad and Mom were both afraid I wouldn't be able to move on and wanted to distract me. My eyes welled up with tears of gratitude instantly, and I nodded heavily, okay. Actually, the Carter family's status in the East Coast elite/powerful social circle was similar to the Vance family's. And our two families had long had an arranged marriage plan/marriage alliance. Unfortunately, back then, I was young, willful, and foolish. I strongly resisted arranged marriage, so even though Robert Vance and I had feelings for each other, I resolutely chose to run away from home. Actually, Robert Vance wasn't a pervert at all, nor did he abuse or torment women. The reason he had such a bad reputation in the East Coast elite/powerful social circle was that he deliberately smeared himself. Because when I left, he had sadly told me that he wouldn't find any other woman and would wait for me his whole life. Robert Vance had also earnestly advised me that David was not a good person and would reveal his true nature sooner or later. Unfortunately, back then, I was blindly in love/infatuated and couldn't hear anything. The night I went back to Robert Vance's room, I shamefully told him I regretted it and once again refused his kindness, stubbornly insisting on solving things myself. Facts proved that I had once again underestimated David's shamelessness and almost ruined myself completely again. After apologizing to Dad and Mom, I officially returned to the Carter family. As my true identity as the daughter of the East Coast elite/powerful social circle family was revealed, all the negative public opinion about me disappeared overnight. Sarah, why did you keep hiding your real identity from me all this time? However, a few days later, David found me again. As soon as we met, he spoke with a resentful tone. I frowned tightly. Talking about this is pointless now. Please don't bother me anymore. But David shamelessly threw himself at my feet and grabbed my leg, crying profusely, Sarah, for the sake of our past relationship, please give me $500,000 and arrange a job for me. Isabella's health is getting worse, she needs to be hospitalized quickly. I wanted to say it's none of my business. But I said patiently, if you want to treat Isabella, you should at least take her to the hospital to confirm what illness she actually has. Get the hospitalization procedures done, then come find me, and I can pay for her hospitalization. David was immediately overjoyed. I knew it. Sarah, you're not heartless. Okay, I'll take Isabella to the hospital right away. Saying that, he left in a hurry. Looking at David's impatient back, I couldn't help but show a long-lost smile. Heh, once he takes her to the hospital for examination, that idiot David should realize what illness Isabella actually has. Robert Vance, who had been accompanying me all these days, laughed and said with some anticipation. I was also a bit expectant, wondering what David's reaction would be when he knew the truth. In the blink of an eye, half a month passed. But David hadn't come back to ask me for money. Haha, guess where that idiot David is now? Robert Vance knew I had been waiting for a result. He suddenly found me one day and said with a big laugh. I said somewhat speechlessly. Why, stop teasing, just tell me. Robert Vance told me that after David took Isabella to the hospital, he immediately found out what illness she actually had. Learning that Isabella really had AIDS, and had also infected him, David completely broke down, then became enraged and used a knife. Isabella died tragically, and David was arrested, awaiting the final execution. My mood instantly brightened. Arrange it, I want to visit him in prison. Robert Vance said with some resentment, no way, you still haven't let go of that idiot? I didn't explain. I rolled my eyes and said, you can come with me and you'll see. Soon, Robert Vance arranged the prison visit through connections. Seeing David again, I found that in such a short time, he had become incredibly gaunt. It seemed that without treatment, David's illness had progressed quickly. There were already signs of sores on his body. Sarah, I knew you would come to see me. You still care about me, don't you? Can you get me out? Seeing that I was the one visiting, David became excited and pleaded with me. I said coldly, sorry, you misunderstood. I came to see your misery. It's a pity I can't witness how you die with my own eyes. David immediately cried profusely, Sarah, I was wrong, I was truly wrong. It's all Isabella's fault, that bitch ruined me. Save me, and I'll love you properly from now on, okay? I said with a smile, keep dreaming. Whether in the previous life or this one, I could never forget how he treated me. My heart had never been so wicked, I only wanted one person to die. Leaving those words, I left. Along the way, Robert Vance seemed particularly excited. Looks like you've truly let go this time. What are your plans now? I shook my head and said, I don't know. I'll take some time to myself first. After some more time passed, the news of David's execution came. I happily drank some wine. Now that everything is settled, you don't have anything on your mind anymore, do why? Oh you? When I was slightly tipsy, Robert Vance, who had been sticking close to me these days, asked cautiously. I smiled lightly, no. Robert Vance hesitated, then suddenly asked me seriously, are we good friends? I raised an eyebrow and looked at him, of course. Robert Vance said, then, as a good friend, can you do me a favor? I replied, through fire and water, just name it. Robert Vance said playfully, help me have a child. I don't want my line to end. Otherwise, who will inherit our billions? I fell silent for a moment. After a long while, I said very seriously, you don't mind me? Robert Vance was startled for a moment, then reached out and stroked my head, silly woman, you are the Sarah I always want to protect. I smiled, no longer having any reservations, and directly threw myself into his arms. In the future, I think I will truly find happiness.